Good morning and welcome from Ivano Frankivsk. This is where the long road to Ukraine has brought me. I'm on my third day in the city and I've come across an interesting bust of a man I've never heard of again. Petro Prokopovich. The only clue that I've got here is that down in this detail, don't know if you can make those out, but there are beehives. I wonder if he was a famous beekeeper. It would make sense. Perhaps a honey industrialist. Why else would there be beehives down at the bottom of the pedestal? Your guess is as good as mine. But fascinating little bit of information, I think. Another name I need to look up. And speaking of looking up things, I was trying to find the palace of the Potockis, wasn't I? Well, some success. Here we are, the palace of the Potocki family, the founders of the city, 1672 to 1682. Oh, it's been a military hospital for 200 years. Oh, and there are personal guided tours, it says here. Mysterious Ivano Frankivsk or Lovebirds and Ivano Frankivsk City. So if you feel like taking up one of those, I'm not sure what the contact details are, but maybe you can use these things. The programme will be useful for tourists, especially in hiking excursions to the historical monument city of Ivano Frankivsk. I've got to warn you, your idea of what the palace might be and my idea might not actually materialise in fact, because although these gates are rather nice, aren't they? And they've got mini, sort of like children's size knights going into battle uniform on. The actual palace is, well, it's sort of a little bit absent. Oh, we've got some lovely posters before we go in. My eye was just caught here by Taras Shevchenko, the national poet, in a few guises. That's not Taras Shevchenko, is it? Oh, it is. It is Taras Shevchenko, but as a young man. Do you remember the early without moustache look that he had in that Taras Shevchenko park? Yes. Now I do recognise him. Although here he's in the form of, wow, Elvis, I guess. Crikey, that's a bit of a spooky one, isn't it? With that huge crow behind him. Gosh. Superman Shevchenko. Oh, as a younger man again. But who's the lady with him? Good grief, they've certainly used their imagination. Taras Shevchenko like you've never seen him before. For any young Ukrainians, perhaps, who've somehow not heard of Taras Shevchenko, somebody's going to a lot of effort to really introduce the man's name to people from all walks of society, aren't they? Exaggerated and over the top, and I like it. This guy is the artist responsible for the posters, Andriy Ermolenko, a designer, musician and artist. You step inside expecting to see the palace, don't you? Well, a bit of imagination, because when you think of a palace, you don't necessarily think of what we've been left with here. Here's a design of what the buildings used to be. previous purposes. They've now got various functions. Which one was the main palace building? A, perhaps? What do you think? A palace comprising 6 buildings around a green space. These days it looks as though we've got a theatre here, museum, restaurant, among other things I can't guess at. I wonder if there's anything left of these old defensive fortress walls. Possibly, possibly not. Haven't seen yet, but maybe if we look a little further. A couple of guys from Poltava have come up with this design. What it is, I don't know. On the other side is Pubshastya. That's a nice padlock, isn't it? Should have had those on Love Island, but I didn't see many. The remains of an old helicopter. This is the unexpected pleasure of just stepping out and walking and seeing what you find. Even if I was roughly heading towards the palace, I'd already found out that there wasn't much to actually see. However, on the surface that might be true, but when you actually get here, make the effort, you find there are a lot of things to see. Some blown up old postcards. There we can see the names Stanislaw and Stanislaviv again. But I think the reason why the palace isn't at all striking is because it was never designed to be. It seems to be very low-key, understated. It wasn't like the Potocki Palace at Lankut, for example, in Poland, which was obviously the one which the Potocki family really went out on a limb to make a statement with. Now, are those the... Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Is this down by Tarashevchenko Park? Can't go in to look around now. It looks, from a distance around the back, I thought, seeing the cones, that it was potentially the Potocki Palace. But then seeing it from this angle yesterday with the flower bed going up the middle, separate houses. At 100, Lutsky lived, 102, Kalinevich lived, and at 104, Kokurevich lived. Industrialists, probably, bankers, descendants of nobility, whoever those characters were, I don't know. The first bit of information, because I couldn't find anything online about those houses. That's one part of the complex waiting to be renovated. These moon pods, Space 99 is what I'm thinking. For those who remember that old TV series in the 70s. There's another part of the palace, again, single-storied, clearly under renovation. Sadly, time, war damage, dry rot, weather, who knows what has really taken its toll, hasn't it? Oh, some more artwork hiding back here as well. Perhaps there was an exhibition. See our second burnt out old helicopter, which has been, it's been painted. That's what's happened. It's been painted. And the fact that I'm filming it must mean I think it's a curiosity if nothing else. Oh, some original old stonework down there. And work definitely in progress on doing the palace up. Is this an idea of what's going to happen to it? Blimey. Okay. Looking a bit modern for my liking, but then I'm not the one tasked with having to try and find a use for it. Modern box houses. Can I interest you in paying a large amount of money to live in a shoebox? Oh, I've never thought of living in a shoebox before. It might be interesting. Oh, everyone's doing it these days. Oh, are they? Okay, so I said, oh, in that case I should, shouldn't I? Oh, I think you should if you want to be seen as a modern person. Somebody who's achieved some status. Even though I'm mocking some of these hideous, ugly modern buildings, there's something about that I quite like. Yeah, I know, it's not like me, is it? Got a downer on modern buildings all round, usually. Mr. Misery Guts, but finally see something he quite likes. Who knows? We're seeing scenes from all over the Ivano Frankivsk region here. Lots of plans for lots of developments, and possibly nothing at all really connected to bringing the old palace back to how it used to look. Oh, excuse me, sir, I saw you were perusing the plans for the former residence of the Potocki family here in Ivano Frankivsk. Could I perhaps interest you in a regenerated impression of how the palace will look in the future? Maybe you'd like to put some cash down for an apartment in one of the 2 or 3 storied buildings. Presumably that's what's going to happen. What on earth's all this about? Given that what remains of the palace in this condition right now isn't anything to write home about, I wish actually I could see what the finished product will look like. Because there's not a lot of beauty to lose here, I think. It was obviously a functional family home rather than one which would be considered a show-stopping centrepiece. Here were the 6 buildings in that corner of the defences originally. Aha, this is more like it. Yellow and black and grey artworks. Very industrial, aren't they? I wonder if it's the same artist who painted the helicopters. Could be. An imagined, long-legged, creepy-crawly Day of the Triffids type thing, but without the leaves. And I think I like this one. It's supposed to be seen from this angle, I think. Now, what on earth is it? Andrei Kumanin from Israel. Gaspard Adin. Is that person number 1? Gentleman number 1? This looks more like Gaspard Adin, doesn't it? Vasil Tatarsky from Kiev has produced Balance. is Mati Zemlya, which is mother something. And this one is called Adam and Eve by Vyacheslav Guteria from Kramatorsk. Oh, just before we go, there's a little bit more from this artist Andrei Ermolenko with his fascination for Taras Shevchenko. He's done a few more bits, which of course I won't understand. A little too obscure for me, I'm afraid. Happy birthday, do you want an apple? Yeah. That's a bit over my head, to say the least. There we go then. Track down the Potocki Palace. It's a space full of surprises. Well, this is nice in the absence of being able to go into Potocki Palace. They put some of the family portraits. Here's Andrei Potocki up at the top. We've got the most famous of the Potockis, Stanislav, who bought the land in the first place, up there. And who's number 5? He's a well-fed Potocki, isn't he? I've just checked, and this is Jan III. But when I think of Jan III, I'm thinking of Polish kings. So was he Jan the... no, he was Jan III Sobieski. Aha. We've got Katerina Kosakowska. Oh, did she become Catherine the Great? What was Catherine the Great's maiden name? Before she married the Tsar, maybe it was Kosakowska? I thought she was a German princess. If only I could read the language, but I can't, unfortunately. And here's another one whose name has been erased by somebody on the poster, unfortunately. And here's Catherine, who may or may not be Catherine the Great, but she's identified there as Kosakowska. Here we got ourselves a new speakeasy bar, where gangsters like to hang out. Is it fanciful to imagine that this raised mound to my right might have been once a part of that defensive wall? Because it's the only thing close to the wall surrounding the palace which gives me that feeling, you know? Straight opposite, there's just some wooded grassland, nothing raised at all. But this is just complete guesswork unless there's something down the end of it which gives an indication that there's some history. Oh, hello, there's a pupster. He's chasing something. Hello, pupster. He's got something far more interesting up there that he's sniffing out. I reckon this could have been a piece of that sort of star-shaped defensive mound going around. Mound going around. Now I recognise where we are. Right, this is how we walked from the train station to the marketplace, because, just to remind you as well, here's Jesus up here. Now, do you remember? We've come out here by accident. Wasn't planning to walk this way at all, but it just happened. And I didn't see anything before which indicated this is the last trace of the old fortress embankment. But I reckon it was. And as there's nobody else to say, oh no, No, this isn't where the fortress walls were. I think I'll stick with my theory.